Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.
Thanks, Dan, for taking the time for doing this. I appreciate the opportunity, man.
No, Bobby. I'm the same way here. It's just I just kind of feel bad that we're not able to keep in better contact. But it's the crazy life of simply life itself. But it's even crazier yet if you combine life with the professional wrestling world.
Yes, well, that's cool. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Literally, Nathan, you should just simply just be playing this because this is going to be probably the best element of it is. Bobby and I just talking about the business and hey, how to survive the business, I think.
Hey, I'm fine with that too, but I do want to, before we dive into that, let's talk about it. You guys had the 2 wrestling matches for the NWA title. Dan was the champion, Bobby the challenger. Dan, I want to start with you. You recently watched those matches. I sent you the clips, but you went back and recently watched those matches. What did you think on looking back on those, Dan, on those matches? Because there was a lot of just pure amateur wrestling, almost felt like a freestyle wrestling match. What were your thoughts?
No, I mean, it was, with Bobby having an amateur wrestling background as well, obviously, every time that you've got a couple professional performers going out to, how are you going to make your match uniquely different? And because, running the ropes, doing clotheslines and chopping and punching. That's basic. I'll say basic professional wrestling 101. But when you get a chance now to realize you got someone that you're working with that same night that has some similar type of background, you try to incorporate that into it just to make the match uniquely different. I remember like doing what I refer to as like the pummeling spot. Most people don't even know what pummeling is, but if you're an amateur wrestler, that I should say a little bit higher level, you would know what that is and what benefits that it has. But I just from a showmanship aspect, it would have something that would intrigue professional wrestler viewers. I guess that's probably the best way of doing it. And that's what you're looking for is stuff that it comes from the shoot world, and literally, let's face it, professional wrestling was all based upon the shoot world, and knowing that now we're simply going to incorporate this into the work world.
Bobby, you look back on these matches, what's your thoughts on them as you see them, especially, how they were more amateur wrestling based?
Well, first of all, I have to say that, speaking of leading to the feet, Dan about suplexed me on my boots on the first move. And that was to be expected. He is the consummate professional, and with that said, and it was very, very well done, because had it been an all-out shoot, the match would not have went more than 30 seconds because Dan would have tapped me out, or I would have just left the place. So with that said, it was done in such a professional way. I have to not that I'm wearing a hat, but I have to take my hat to Dan for being a gentleman and a professional. We had a gentleman's agreement, if you will, and I've spoken about that before. The one thing I remember when I say that, I say it with all due respect, because I have nothing but respect for Dan Severn, and I was an early fan of UFC, and so I remember getting the booking the very next day after Dan had won his first UFC. And it was like we was booked out about a month later. So with that said, the first match I recall, it was all I could do to even try to get behind Dan or counter anything, because anything I was trying to do was already countering, and that was the beauty of it. So that's what made it, I think, both matches look so good, is because the progression was there that, at any given time, I don't think that anyone thought that the first match was anything less than just, let's go out here and just have a good, solid, amateur, tight-based match based off of a shoot with a gentleman's agreement. The second match I thought was a little bit better, only because, again, with the gentleman's agreement in place, and with the NWA World Heavyweight title on the line, which I took prestige in that title, as I'm sure Dan did, carrying that title around, I got behind him a couple of times because it was worked in a way that it was a progression. So if there would have been a third match, maybe there would have been even more of me being a little bit more aggressive or assertive with Dan. And with that said, so I think it was a good, both matches I thought were good. The second match I thought was better as an outing for me. But as for Dan, I thought both of them were good outings for Dan because I think that he was making that transition to the shoot in the UFC into the pro style, and I thought he done a very good job with that, and I respect that very much because at any given time, it could have turned into an all-out shoot, and that would have been pretty, especially for me. So and any other person that he would have been working with at that time or in the future. So with that said, I just have to say I was honored to be wrestling for the NWA heavyweight title, with a champion such as Dan Severn, because he comes from that pedigree of the shoot and of the amateur and of being a professional. So thank you.
Well, no, Bobby, I mean, you leave me a little bit speechless there on that one. I appreciate all the kind words, and the reality there with this match there, Nathan, there as well as the fact that with each time that a couple men get a chance to work with each other, the first time is always going to be kind of like that feeling out process that you never had this opportunity to be in the ring with this person. So with each progressive match, you should understand each other's abilities, and after a while, I mean, when you look at guys in the WWE and stuff like that, they've wrestled each other so many times that they don't even have to think about the match anymore. The magic just simply happens. But usually in those first initial matches, well, it's kind of like that filling out process, and there's always that little bit of the unknown. I mean, I've always been known as a rather snug or stiff or pipe wrench type of a worker, and Bobby, that still hasn't changed much over all these years.
I respect that because I never minded working snug or stiff or what have you, because I think that's a part of the business. It should be, because I think, and I always thought that, and I still do, I still think that, and I agree with you, the more you work with someone, obviously, the easier the magic flows or what have you, but I always like that snug and stiff style, that strong style, if you will, without taking liberties on someone else's body, of course. But I'm glad you're still out there kicking ass and still working stiff, snug, and shooting. So good for you, man.
Well, I always tell people, because I've done other matches with other people, like a Jim Cornette, for example. The fact that they wanted me to do something to Jim Cornette, and Jim's eyes were getting big and stuff like that. And I go, Jim, I said, this is all you really got to do. I said, you will be never treated better than if you were being carried in your own father's arms. And then when it was all done, we got the little spot right there. He just smiled. He goes, I'm still in one piece. He goes, you couldn't have said it any better than what you did at the time there, Dan. Yeah. And again, that's what the beauty of professional wrestling. I love professional wrestling for what it is, to entertain folks, to give them for that duration of the time of that match, to let them know that they're witnessing something really unique, incredible. Well, at least we hope it turns out that way. But it's like a suspended animation. You just want them to view this and be entertained by it.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I think also that when people, and I'm really careful about how I use the word entertainment, but I think the people should get entertained, but I think there should be that realistic element to the matches. And I think in our matches, I know we did, and I know in all, keeping it professional and making it look real without killing someone, not kicking someone in the face or taking a liberty with someone, but really taking care of that person all the while being making the match look as professional and as realistic as possible. Those elements, because I'm still a fan of professional wrestling too, and I always have been. I probably always will be. But I just like that element of surprise, the suspension of beliefs that you can watch. These two men are out there, and it's an athletic, competitive performance. And I know you've been to Japan, Dan, several times like myself, and that's one of the reasons I liked working over there so much, was because they always kept it as competitive, like it was still a sport. And that was the thing about our two matches. And again, it was, we tried to keep it somewhat competitive and realistic. And in doing so, we entertained the people that bought tickets to see that match along with the other matches on the show. And that's why I'm a professional wrestling fan, I guess. Always, like you said, that suspended belief that these two men can do it, but also with the athletic performance. Because face it, we were athletes. You're an athlete, you know, to get to the levels you've achieved, and to put that into a performance that's going to entertain millions of people around the world. It's just one of those things that you're honored to do. I think you're doing an injustice to yourself if you're not out there busting your butt in the ring and trying your hardest, working snug, stiff, what have you. Again, without taking liberties, but making it look professional for their entertainment, because they did buy that ticket. So you give them their money's worth and then some, and I know you've always done that. And I think our match provided entertainment in both incidents. And if there had been a third, like you said, I think there would have been a third or fourth if we'd have worked more and more together. They would have progressively gotten better and better matches out of us, you know, for sure. But anyway, the athletic performance is important.
Yep, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I was just totally agreeing with what you said. The more you work with people, the better you know each other, and you know their each other's pros and cons, what they're willing to do, what they're willing to receive, and it's and that's where it's getting, you know, be respectful. There's not many people that I trust all that well in the professional wrestling industry. Ironically, I've been hurt far worse in my professional wrestling career than I have been in my cage fighting career, which is almost like a contradiction in terms, but you have to put your body into another person's hands and pray to God they know what to do with your body, because if they screw up, it's not them who gets hurt, you get hurt. You know, I really was never going to be, you know, Jim Cornette probably said it best, Dan Severn was never going to be a flashy wrestler, in the sense that I'm not going to go around there, jump on a microphone and cut killer promos. He goes, you're the greatest thing to ever hit professional wrestling. He goes, you're a wrestler who actually can wrestle. So I was a throwback from days gone by. And, you know, that's the nice part when you are finally able to come across someone like a Bobby Blaze, and you know that now you can actually incorporate some of the things from your past. You're more in your comfort area of things. It's ironic because I was this past weekend, the Ultimate Fighting Championship was taking place. I was out there working for the UFC for a couple of days. And you know, a lot of questions were brought up, and they've said, well, you know, what do you contribute to your overall success in that? And I says, well, I always stayed inside my comfort zone when I was doing my MMA type stuff. I knew that my striking ability, well, point blank, it sucked. Okay, I did not have any striking ability, but I always know that, well, my opponent has to be within arm's range in order to strike or kick or whatever. I was always good about staying outside the range, and I knew how people train. If they throw it out, they're going to recoil it back, and as they recoil it back, I follow them right on in to either a standing clinch or stuffing them up against the cage wall or taking them on down. And it's kind of like, now I look right at them and I go, hello, and welcome to my world. You shall never see the light of day again, because I know my reward would be being punched, and you know, no one wants to be punched. I don't care how tough they are, stuff like that. It is better to give than to receive. So again, it's kind of a long roundabout way of answering the question, but you know, Bobby was able to put me into a comfort zone to where, you know, we're going to have a better match, just because now I'm doing things that I've been studying since I've been in junior high school. You know, the sport of amateur wrestling. So that's where, again, I said that comfort zone, and the more that you work with each other, it becomes just simply magical. Neither one of you even know sometimes what is actually going to take place after you work with each other. Just kind of like you simply just know what's going to take place maybe at the end, but from that point on, you're just going to go out there and just put on a show. Take the audience to an emotional roller coaster.
I appreciate the compliments from Tim as well, and also from Dan. I completely agree that we both got into the more of a comfort zone, especially in that second match. We knew a little bit more what each other could do and expect of each other. And I think also, again, it was that progression of feeding into, I think in the first match it was maybe a Japanese arm bar, and I just happened to be right beside the rope. So there's that, he didn't tap out. He would have, he didn't. And then the next time it's caught, within a short period of time, I'm dead center in the middle of the ring. And, of course, there it is out of nowhere, which, again, boom. And Dan wins the match. Second match, it looks like we have to put that suspension of belief to the fans, like, this guy might have a chance, and because Dan's reputation precedes him, and rightfully so, being a champion in the UFC and amateurs and collegiate wrestler, etc. And then out of nowhere, I get something in on him, but when I go one step further, or he, sidesteps, there it is, another submission right out of nowhere, and that's just being the professional in both and competitive, because we pretty much laid everything in, but we didn't kick at each other in the face or try to punch. As you mentioned, there was no punches thrown or anything. Those were just a couple of side kicks rather than keep Dan at bay, because he's going to shoot in on me, and we both just kind of played off each other on that. And as he said, there you are, lights out. His reward's down there on the ground, because he's got me in a Fujiwara arm bar, and there's nowhere to go except for maybe he's going to rip my arm out of socket and beat me over the head with it. But once I tapped, that wasn't the case, because being a professional and again, not even really knowing everything we're going to do, but just in there competing against each other, knowing, okay, here's, this may be the outcome is the arm bar, or the Japanese arm bar, or the second match, the Fujiwara arm bar. The rest of it's just, let's put on a really good professional competition match for these people. And I thought we got a lot out of 8 minutes. I appreciate you noticing that too, Tim. And it was an honor for me to get to go 8 minutes with Dan Severn. I'll just say that. So thank you very much.
Was the match called completely in the ring, or did you just get the finish in the back and then call it in the ring, or was there anything discussed backstage? I know, knowing you two guys, I assume it was called in the ring.
I think a little bit of both. I think again, you get basically a basic premise, and then you kind of go from there. You always want to know that you can start off a match with something, and you know what the finish is, but pretty much almost anything in between that, talk to each other to say, well, this is some general ideas, but there are some guys that they'll go there and they'll try to lay out every single aspect of the match, and I look at them, I go, I am not that good. I can't remember. You lost me after the third item right there. I'm thinking, there's just a certain premise that you're the baby face, you're the heel, or actually we're two baby faces, and now we're going to put on an athlete contest. I understand these concepts right there, and it's going to be a show of give and take, and try to, if you just go back to that, suspend that animation and create something that even sometimes you don't even know how good the match will be once it's over with. Until you hear the crowd's reaction, or even from your fellow wrestlers. So, I mean, what your match really does good with even your fellow wrestlers. They're like, well, that was awesome, and whatever else have you. Of course, they use a much more colorful language, but I'm trying to keep this good for the air.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Dan. I couldn't have worded it better. The only thing I will add is when I walked through the curtain in Knoxville in the second match, Buddy Landel was in front of the monitor, as was Cornette, and Cornette turned around, and next thing I know, people started clapping, and Buddy said something like, "You've got to send that to Japan," and Jimmy just hugged me and thanked me. But, it was just, that's that feeling that just respect of your fellow peers, that you went out there and done what you were supposed to do. So that's the thing. And we got that pop both times. I don't think the outcome was given away at any given point, other than most people probably thought, Dan Severn's going to win this match, and rightfully so, you did. And both times, the people popped, in Charlotte and in Knoxville. The people, like I said earlier, I think they got their money's worth in our match and then some, because we did deliver a professional athletic performance. And not a lot was called. We discussed a couple things, and not a lot was talked about in the back, and not a lot was called in the ring. It's just a matter of filling each other out. We had an idea, like Dan said, from the lockup to go, and then we had an idea somewhere around this time period there'll be a finish in there. And I thought both matches come off really good. My favorite was the second one, but I enjoyed them both equally as well, because I was a little bit nervous more in the first one, trying to keep up with Dan, and again, rightfully so with his status. And then the second one, just getting more comfortable with Dan and being around Dan and knowing that, there's a little bit of trust factor here, that when we go in there, we're just going to go at it and see what happens. And again, the main thing was, other than professionalism, was delivering a good quality professional match for the fans that they obviously enjoyed them both nights, because some of the boys in the back popped as well as the fans outside popped, and that's what it was all about. And for that, I'm forever grateful just to have had the opportunity to be in the ring with Dan Severn. I appreciate it, Dan.
So again, thank you, Bobby, for again, nice compliments, something like that. And I just appreciate the fact of being in the ring with someone like yourself that has take that background with the amateurs and stuff like that, so that we can do something different for the fans. Because bottom line, that is our job. We're there to entertain, and again, whether it's to you're also looking to get reaction. I mean, going if you look at the terms of the heel and the baby face. The heel, he's always looking for some type of a negative reaction out of the crowd. The baby face looking for a positive reaction. We're basically, Bobby and I were actually neither one. We went out there as two competitors. So there was really the heel premise or the baby face premise. If anything, you might just say it was two baby faces going out there and simply just putting on an athletic performance.
Right. I agree 100%. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze YouTube channel. Super kick the like button. Let it rip in the comments. And give that subscribe button a hard punch.
Well, thank you once again there for being able to talk with you, Bobby, and also there for Nathan for putting this together.
All right, no problem, Dan. Thanks again.
Sir. Appreciate it.